Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jason.
I'm TC. Kelly, is my smirk okay today?
Good smirk. Good smirking. Last week, we dove into our series on capitalism, or more specifically, corruption of capitalism. And we basically just laid out some general information about the fact that capitalism is an economic system, not any other kind of system, not a political system, not a social order. We gave some examples of economic systems, different types of economic systems, and we had some discussion about what capitalist America would have you believe about capitalism, that it's that the Ayn Rand Society definition of zero interference with government, that it's a self-sustaining system that doesn't need any interference from government. The problem with that,
it's a system,
is that it's a system, and like any other system, it requires maintenance. And when you are a nation of laws that is designed around creating a more perfect union, we all recognize that asking people to do the right thing has never been enough. Asking people to do the right thing, or corporations who claim to have the same rights as people to do the right thing, has never been enough.
Trusting in better angels. You really are going to trust in the better angels?
That Ayn Rand business is, the reason they want you to believe that is because it works in their favor. That's when you turn it all into the Wild West and allow people to do what they want, that's when you end up with sewage and rivers and chemicals and
Cuyahoga River on fire, Silent Spring because the DDT has killed all the insects, or made eggshells very thin. These are the things I grew up with.
There's got to be regulation. There's no way around it. And if you don't regulate it, you end up with a form of capitalism that ends up being a zero-sum game. And if you game that all the way out, you go back to fiefdoms and feudalism. And that is definitely not what our system was designed around. There are other myths of capitalism that society or the scholars would have you believe, and we're going to go through some of those.
Okay. The easiest thing right now, if you really want to go into detail on this, is go to your favorite search engine and look up capitalism myths, or myths of capitalism. And 2 articles popped up that I thought were interesting. One is from the Foundation of Economic Freedom, and they say there are 4 myths. First one is capitalism was created, and they generally point at Adam Smith as being the creator, which he was not. Another one is that
I would say capitalism established itself organically through freedom and free markets.
Well, and it was way before the United States was even thought of or was even born. It is a system that's gone back a long ways. Elsewhere, why would there have been the East India Company, which was bringing goods, or the tulip crisis in Holland back?
Sure, absolutely. Pieces and parts of capitalism and trading, absolutely.
Yeah.
The form of free market capitalism that we have today was something that I think grew organically out of this country, actually. But anyway, moving forward.
The second myth from the Foundation of Economic Freedom is capitalism creates poverty. There's a lot of evidence contrary to that.
I think mismanaged capitalism creates a lot of poverty.
Capitalism is about capital, and capital being people, land, money, businesses. Capitalism creates winners and losers. If you're a follower of John Smith, Adam Smith, sorry, in his philosophy, which was brought about at the time of Darwinism, and the fittest will survive, then yeah, somebody's got to win, somebody has to lose. But if you're a follower of John Nash, where it's basically the 70% rule, where everybody can be uplifted, a rising tide lifts all boats philosophy, then no, that doesn't work.
Right.
On the other hand, the Hoover Institution, and you got to keep in mind who funds any of these things. The Hoover Institution is funded 50% of their funding through private donations, including from conservative luminaries such as the Walton Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
We've already shit on Walmart enough.
Yeah, real. They're luminous.
Sarah Scafie Foundation, the Lynd and Harry Bradley Foundation, and the William E. Simon Foundation. All of these are very conservative. Some of them are called the father of modern conservatism.
Yeah.
And as you probably can tell, and between the two of us, what we consider the current Republican Party is not conservative.
No.
And I even listened to Ben Shapiro today talking about conservatism, and the things that he said were accurate. And he also doesn't believe that the modern Republican Party is conservative. So anyway, myths. Capitalism makes the rich richer and the poor poor. Remember, they want you to think these are myths, that these aren't true.
Right.
And I bet you right now, all of us can think of people who are poor and think of people that are richer.
For sure.
Capitalism is inherently unstable. It caused the Great Depression. This is a myth. It did not create the Great Depression.
Again, mismanaged capitalism.
Yeah, but
causes.
it is unstable in its current form. We've got highs and lows. What high is followed by a recession because it's not leveled out. Corporations earn obscene profits at the expense of consumers and workers. I'm going to point to Walmart again.
We can point to a lot of corporations, and if we go back to that other one about the one before about
obscene profits.
No,
the Great Depression.
Caused Great Depression. Think about what we saw pre the Depression, the Industrial Age, the discovery of many technologies that advanced our society very quickly. Markets weren't prepared for it. Government wasn't prepared for it. Capitalism wasn't prepared for it. And very ambitious, very driven men used those components to their advantage to build massive amounts of wealth. And that mismanagement ended up in the Depression. It wasn't that capitalism caused it. It was that the mismanagement of it caused it. And where are we at in our society today? We are seeing advancements in technology that are moving society very on a fast track that it's unprepared for. The government is unprepared for it. The markets are unprepared for it. And we are seeing, in my opinion, a great mismanagement of our capitalist system again. Okay, sorry.
Myth number 4 that they want you to believe. Believe it's a myth.
Yeah.
Corporations engage in predatory pricing, misleading advertising, and other deviations from the market ideal. Number 5, unrestrained capitalism leads to environmental destruction. No, that is not a myth. We talked about it in the 70s, and we talked about the textile mills and stuff on the East Coast and how the rivers were polluted because the way you get rid of your waste is you just dump it in the river and let it go downstream to the community below.
Mm-hmm.
Mergers and acquisition have one trace economic and a political power. Okay, mergers and acquisition have consolidated power into the hands of fewer people. No, that is exactly what
They
happened.
want you to think that's a myth, but the reality is that the monopoly laws that we have are not being enforced. They're not being properly managed, and we're seeing merger after merger after merger of super wealthy company and super wealthy company and super wealthy company. That's not a myth.
No.
They want you to think it's a myth because they want to keep doing it.
This one's weird. Capitalism leads to globalism, which destroys culture and exacerbates inequality. One of the jokes in NATO was that Canada could have been the perfect country. It could have had French culture, American productivity, and a British government. But instead, they ended up with American culture, a French government, and British productivity. So there is some truth to that, is that you go to some place in Asia and you'll see NBA t-shirts and you'll see all kinds of stuff that are clearly American oriented. But globalism was not created by capitalism. That was a concerted effort by the political powers to try to spread the wealth, and most of it was on the back of Americans again. Spread the
to
wealth.
end the idea of war.
Yeah, because
If you're in business,
if happy people are content, and content people don't want to go to war because it costs too much. And that was the whole idea behind globalism, was to try and spread the wealth. The problem is they did it on our backs. I know of a case where the Maytag factory in Greenville, Michigan, the workers there were about to get laid off, and they were forced to teach the Mexican workers who were replacing them down in Mexico on how to do things. Talk about salt in the wound.
all right, we got to move on. What we
Okay,
got?
sorry. Without government protection of labor unions, workers will not obtain a fair wage. I'd say that's not a myth.
Yeah, that's definitely not a myth.
It's the last myth they want you to believe is capitalism allows and rewards racism and segregation.
I'm not sure.
I don't think that's a myth.
Yeah.
And only primarily because we've seen how the redlining in real estate.
Yeah. So that's what the scholars are selling.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I'm selling. And before I do it, I want to lay down a disclaimer. I am a capitalist through and through. I said this last week. I believe in free market capitalism. I believe it keeps us freer. I believe it is the best economic system that humanity has ever created. But it is only a system. And if my definition of capitalism is this: it is an economic system. It is the greatest economic system of distribution for goods, services, and wealth. Period. That's it. That's all it is. And it requires management. I'm about to say some things that are probably not going to set very well with a lot of people. And just understand, if you're out there and you've managed to put together 10 or 20 or 50 or even $100 million of net worth for yourself,
Good on you.
good on you. And I may not necessarily even be talking about you. It depends on what your mentality is about that. Something starts to happen to people around the $100 million mark. We're going to talk about that next week probably. But just for the purpose of this video, good on you. Capitalism is about making money, building wealth, insulating yourself from the stress of living on a rock that's flying through space at 500,000 miles an hour. I get it. I got it. As somebody who is mass producing and mass marketing a product and a brand, I'm in it to win it. Just to understand that. Here we go. Myth number 1. The self-made person I'm sorry, but that is a myth. Nobody is self-made. Everybody gets help. If you are poor, somebody offered you opportunity along the way. Yes, you had to seize the opportunity and you had to make good of it, but somebody had to offer it to you. If you were born into money, you were born into opportunity. That's just the way it is. Right down to roads and bridges and government services. Everybody gets help. Working together, unity. That's what this country is about. That's part of the 5 pillars. That's part of how our power is grown organically. And I can tell you that I don't come from money. I've had lots of help. If this company goes over in a huge way and I make millions of dollars, there's no way I can legitimately claim not having any help. It's just not possible. Myth number 2. Trickle-down economics. Would you like to say something?
I would love to say something. Okay, trickle-down economics. I have no idea where it came from, but the first time I heard it was during the Reagan campaign.
Yes.
And his competition for the Republican nomination was George H.W. Bush. And George H.W. Bush said, "This is voodoo economics. This does not work. This is bullshit," in so many words. However, as soon as he became the vice president, he's suddenly a believer because they were making money on it. And so the whole thing about, which I think is next myth, is the whole idea on trickle-down economics was we give tax breaks to the rich and then that money will trickle down into job creation in the United States.
And better wages and all of these kinds of things.
Yeah, so what's your next myth?
Well, let me just say, first of all, about trickle-down. It should be bubble up. Corporations get their money from the American people, not the other way around. It is us that create these monsters, these mega behemoths. We buy their stuff and we support them. And that's how they get to be these massive companies that they are. It's not the other way around. Let me just go on and expound upon the whole job creation thing. The myth, wealthy companies or wealthy people are the job creators. That is a myth. They are not job creators. I promise you, there is no conversation in any boardroom in America or otherwise that begins with the phrase, how can we create more jobs?
How can we? What can we do?
We got these tax cuts. We got this money laying around. How can we create more jobs? We've innovated. We've come up with a way to increase our profits. How can we create more jobs? That conversation has never, ever happened, and it never will. As somebody who is mass producing a product, let me tell you exactly how many jobs I'm going to create. Exactly the number of jobs that it takes to fill the orders that you people are making. You can find us at www.thegamegravity.com, by the way. I am not going to create one more job, not one more than it takes, than is required to fill those orders. You people, America, you are the job creators. And let me just tell you, on the tax cut thing, as somebody who has made a career out of building fancy things for wealthy people, I promise you, when you give a wealthy person a tax cut, they are thinking about how to refit the galley on their second yacht. They are not thinking about how to give anybody, create a job, or even give anybody a better wage. And we're going to talk about that next week too. Right now, we got to move on.
Wait a minute. We got to. There's a movie back from the 70s, I think. It was Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. And he ends up being in a boardroom and he's saying, what can we do for the American people? And all the board members' jaw drops. So That's the only place I've ever seen this conversation.
Next myth. Paying taxes is punishment. That is a myth. One of the 5 pillars, I know we all don't like taxes. I get it, I don't like taxes either. But one of the 5 pillars of our strength is the way that we tax our population. And I'll just give you a quick little anecdote. One day, part of my job was to provide materials as a project manager. I went into this bolt supply company. There's a Marine sitting at the desk waiting for his order. We sit down, we start bantering. I say in the conversation, "Thank you for your service." And his response to me was one I hadn't heard till then and hadn't heard since. He said, "Well, I'll say the same thing to you I say to everybody. Thank you for paying your taxes. I got a rough start in life. My parents were divorced early. I got in some trouble. I joined the Marine Corps. I got an education, learned about maintenance, and today I'm head of maintenance of the new Omni Hotel." That is the kind of things that our taxes do. Taking care of old people, soft power, creating allies around the world. Our taxes do good things.
Roads,
schools, hospitals. It's not punishment. I think we can have all kinds of fair conversation around who should be taxed what and what our taxes should go for, but it's not punishment.
And if you're avoiding taxes, you're not a patriot.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to want legitimate deductions. It's another thing to suck money out of the system, hide it in offshore accounts, come up with all kinds of ways to rob the government. That's not patriotic. And I just want to, I don't have a ton of ill will against wealthy people. I've said that already. Robert Kiyosaki is one of my favorite. I've read so many books from super wealthy people, and I've learned so much. And one of the reasons I love Robert Kiyosaki is because, a long time ago, he was willing to discuss money and capitalism and some of the tricks of capitalism and offer people information about how money works. And, he grew up in an era, unfortunately, where he believed a lot of these same myths, and he still does today. And I think that's unfortunate. But if you've ever read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you hear the story about how he learned about money and how his poor dad, which was his natural father, didn't know much about money. He was a school teacher and a government employee. But his rich dad was his friend's dad, who was an entrepreneur, and he taught him about money, and he used the game Monopoly to teach him about money. And to this day, Monopoly is an amazing way to teach young people about money, how the system works, and there's lots of lessons to be learned. You can learn about, how some properties are more valuable than others, and, good investments and bad investments. And you can learn about developing the properties, and you can put houses on them and hotels. And to this day, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. That is a system that works for building wealth in real estate. You can learn about pulling the tax card, or going to jail, by breaking the rules. All kinds of things you can learn from the game of Monopoly. But there's a couple of lessons that they don't teach you and won't teach you. And I'm going to tell you right now, you decide if you believe it or not. The biggest lesson that you should learn, and I'm ending with this, the biggest lesson that you should learn from the game of Monopoly is the first lesson when you sit down and look at the board. Look at the board. Assets are limited. There are only so many properties that you can purchase. Look at the little...
There's no add-on.
Look at the containers of the little green houses and the little red hotels. Assets are limited. There's only so many of those that you can purchase. Look at the amount of money that's in the bank. Assets are limited. There's only so much money. Look at the icons for the players. Assets are limited. There are only so many seats at the table. Lesson number one when you sit down to play a game of Monopoly is assets are limited.
And it's the same thing here.
The super wealthy do not want you to know that lesson. We're going to talk about it more next week. This is the last myth that I'm going to dispel. And here again, the game of Monopoly. The myth is, if you tax us, this is the wealthy speak, super wealthy speaking. If you tax us or force us to pay a living wage, we will leave. That is a myth. Next, I'm calling your bluff. Next week, we're going to talk about the difference between big earners and big owners. And I'm going to tell you why it's a myth. I'll tease it with this. Have you ever tried to move a Monopoly board that's in play, that's got money on the table and cards on the table and houses and hotels and the game icon pieces that's in play from one place to another? It's very difficult to do. Good luck, Jerry Jones, from pulling up the Silver Dome and the entire NFL and moving it to Dubai. It ain't gonna happen.
Silver Dome doesn't exist anymore.
No, whatever dome they're playing, I don't care. The point is,
Jerry World, on the other hand,
they're not gonna pick up 40 Wall Street and move it to, I don't know, Monaco. It's not gonna happen. Next week, the difference between big earners and big owners.
Thanks for listening.
See y'all next week.